Recording in progress.
Can you look up your screen? Because I'll just see the presentation. Do you want me to see your screen? No, I'm trying to give you stuff.
Oh, Sturgill.
Well, no, I'm just trying to be courteous.
There you go.
Let me look at this.
Nikki, it seems the other consultants don't realize the importance of utility coordination in the design phase.
I'm parked in here all day. We just have to get the word out.
One wonders. Those corral some people outside if I need to.
We picked up some more people in person. Welcome. We picked up some more people online. Everybody online, welcome to the call. Welcome to the conference. We wish you all were here. We wish we were all in person together. Maybe next year we'll get there. This is a big session. I'm pretty excited about this session. Highway design and utility coordination integration. This has been a subject of interest for KYTC for some time now. Utility coordination has always been this silo over here, and then we've got the silo of highway design over here doing their gig. So they toss it over the wall, and utility coordinators jump in there and start doing their thing. But it's sometimes too late for real progress to be made when we throw it over the wall. So some time ago, the SPR project through UK and under the guidance of Tim at UK and Roy Sturgill now at Iowa State and Kenny Franklin with Parsons have taken this mantle and are building a solution where utilities and design speak to each other besides throwing stuff over the wall. It's important to us to build a better project. Very important to us. And I'm sure Kenny's going to go into that in quite a bit of detail in just a moment. Kenny Franklin is with Parsons. I met Kenny years and years and years ago through NDOT. Kenny built with NDOT utility coordination training certification program, which we are emulating in Kentucky with Kenny's assistance through the SPR program. He has been notable nationally when it comes to utility coordination and training and certification, working with the National Highway Institute on training. He's notable in the industry of utility coordination for DOT projects. I'm really pleased to have my friend Kenny here today to talk to us and work with me on this SPR project. We are in good hands. Kenny?
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming today. I need to check. Can those online see me and hear me okay if I'm not here? I don't like to be trapped behind a podium. Can we check?
We're checking.
How many of you are in highway design of some sort? Good, good. Utility coordination? Bigger part of the room? Okay, good. So the concept, Brad Eldridge called me a few years ago and we talked, and he said, Kenny, what can we do to improve reliability and delivery? And I said, well, there's some things that we can talk about. So one of the things that we want to do today, this is not. There we go. Why is it important? Why should we worry about it? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about just brief highlights of what the research team and the panel have been working on. And we'll talk about some best practice highlights that we're going to talk about in the training. And then we'll just have a slide and we'll open up discussion throughout the whole time. So if you have any questions, just let's talk together, make this an inclusive environment. So why is this focus necessary? Well, a couple of things I've noted. Utilities are frequently cited as one of the leading causes of construction delays, which cost time and money and aggravation to the public. So across the country, and Kentucky's no different, Indiana's no different, one of the top 3 reasons why projects struggle to deliver on time are the utility issues. Has anybody experienced a problem with utility during construction? Anybody? Okay. It's morning, but let's get going. The cabinet's spending probably tens of millions of dollars relocating utilities that we would rather spend in better roads and bridges. So that's a big deal. So if you're in leadership or you have a touch point to leadership, that point alone is worth the effort to integrate utilities and design, because we can save millions of unnecessary dollars that are spent in the wrong places. And delays cost, and these costs can be alleviated with an improved integration, because we can fix a lot of the problems if we start earlier and integrate our mindsets, eliminate some silos. So some other reasons why: everybody's short-staffed. How many of you at the cabinet feel like you need more people to do the job correctly? Yeah, utilities are in the same boat. Consultants are in the same boat. We can't hire enough people to meet the demands of the infrastructure between utility infrastructure and roads and highways. It's a big deal. It's a problem. So what can we do to alleviate that? Integrate utilities and design to avoid utilities when possible. Federal Highways making an increased investment in this notion that we have to integrate utilities and avoid utilities whenever feasible. And they're nationally, how much money is being pushed out through the infrastructure bill. And then the definition of infrastructure has changed with this recent administration. So infrastructure doesn't just mean highways and bridges. It also means broadband. And it means expanding utilities everywhere. So there's a lot of money coming our way. So there's only going to be a bigger push that pushes the staffing challenges even more. The Dig Once and other broadband initiatives pushed out from the president down through all the legislator is get the broadband out there. So what used to be, you could probably tell me, we never allowed utilities in limited access rights of way. Never allowed them to install longitudinally along the freeways. Now it's being mandated and pushed out. So the world's changing on us very quickly in that realm. But the utility companies are as overwhelmed as we are. I talked to Nikki the other day, and it's hard to get utilities to respond because they are so overwhelmed with projects. We need to be aware of that and have that mindset that they're busy. And it's not that they're just ignoring us and that they are obstinate. Sometimes they just cannot get to it. So it's helping them prioritize and whatever we can do to make it better. So what's being done? National perceptions have been changing. So across the country, people are realizing that utilities matter. And the process that many of us engage in utility coordination is a big deal. And it's not some siloed operation that can be handled off on the side while we deliver the project. It is essential and integral to everything else that happens. Just a few weeks ago, I talked at a right-of-way conference in Texas about the intersections of right-of-way and utilities, and so many touch points where they have to work together to make it work. My friend Dan's in the room, and I've had the unfortunate pleasure of having a utility violate environmental permits. Well, that just shuts down your project, and then the national agencies that are involved will say, well, it's not a utility problem, it's your problem because it's a state project. So then you shut down a multi-million-dollar project in a downtown area because we cut down a tree that was supposed to be protected. It all matters. And we have to integrate with each other and get rid of the silos. State transportation agencies have been working to improve efficiency and reliability across the country. I borrow this phrase, I'll say it today, from my buddy in Ohio. We have to improve reliability in delivery. So across the board, we need to finish what we start, and we need to mean what we say. And so when we're engaging in utilities and coordination, we need to be able to finish that task so that they feel like it's worth their effort to engage. The cabinet has caught on, and they're investing through this research project to help us get rid of the silos and integrate. Overall, I think that the cabinet can reimagine our overall project delivery process. Think about how we're going to do this differently, eliminate the siloed thinking, and engage utility companies as partners. So here's a transformational thought that we want to infuse into everything we do at the academy. It's not our right of way, it's the public's right of way. That's one thing. And then secondly, the utilities are not what's in conflict. So when we create a conflict matrix, we list all the utilities that are in conflict. But in reality, the utilities are not what's in conflict at all. They exist just fine right where they are. It's the new project design that's in conflict. That should cause a little bit of But if we think about it that way, it's that I, as the designer, I created the conflict. The water line is there just functioning just fine right where it is. So if I think of it that way, then maybe it's a little bit more appropriate for me to put more effort into figuring out how to resolve that conflict instead of just making the utility resolve the conflict by moving. Does that make sense? What kind of pause does that give you, or concern does that give you? Well, let's go on. All right, so the research project, I don't know how to get rid of that thing on the top so you can see my titles, but
Sorry, can I answer that?
please.
From my perspective, as the utility supervisor and coordinator, a lot of times we're in the room in the PL&G meeting or in the joint inspection with a group full of roadway design minded people.
Mhm.
And like I said, their mindset is the design, and sometimes we don't do a good enough job as the utility staff in expressing the concerns of the utilities in a room full of the design-minded group.
I don't disagree. I would say from Federal Highways perspective, some of the co-instructors that I work with at NHI that are nationally involved, one of them said that it's a shallow-minded design engineer that doesn't understand that their role involves utility issues. And so, you know, I've had conversations with people where it's like, did you turn on the utility layer while you were doing design? What utility layer? You know, all that SU data that we collected and we showed, did you turn that on to see if you could move your bridge pier at 5 feet? Did you look to see if you could change the ditch swale? No. Well, that's not a very good design, because they're not thinking about the project. They're thinking about a document that they have to produce. So we need to increase the awareness on the design team, and that's why we have to integrate. And that's, you know, we need to, all of us that are on the panel, all of us that are involved, we need to say to ourselves, we're failing if we're not getting this message across. So we have to keep pounding that message. So the research team was to map and analyze the current process. And we've got lots of documents, the guidance documents in draft form. It's lots and lots of charts and graphs to say, how are you guys doing it now? Then we were to determine and evaluate strategies and best practices from national sources that we picked up from other places. What are the others doing better that we can incorporate? What can we talk about? So that's what we've been doing. Then we're developing a proposed alignment, taking the old, looking at the new, and looking at a better process, better steps with milestones, checklists that we feel like we can incorporate. We're going to be talking about defining specific roles and responsibilities, so everybody knows what they're supposed to do. Because one of the things that I know from my experience in Indiana, being Jennifer's peer there, is that what we pushed out from central office, the districts didn't always embrace. I'm sure that doesn't happen in Kentucky. I'm sure every district utility person is saying, I am on for him, ready to do whatever she says needs to be done, right? We need to embrace good practices wherever we are. And then develop a guidance document. So that's where we're working now on the research. So how many of you are in the room that are on the panel? A couple of you are, right? Yeah. Thank you. Let's work together. Let's finish this strong. I was sharing with Sherry that, or a gentleman back here from the research group there. COVID has made it very difficult for us to do some of the things that we had hoped to do. A lot of live interactions that I hoped to have had didn't get to happen as much. And hopefully we can finish strong, get this guidance document so it's not something on the shelf, but it's something that we're all proud of. So we need everybody's input. So I bring this to you. This is from the NHI class. If you can see that on this axis, you have the ability to influence costs. So the earlier you start, the more ability you have to influence costs. So we teach and propose, along with Federal Highway, that utility coordination starts before official planning of a project, but certainly in the scoping of a project. That's the best place that we can influence the cost. So we don't want to wait till we're down in final design, because we've lost a lot of our ability and we're losing time as we do it. So we want to start up here, the early stages of project development, to understand and build a utility awareness. Identify key pieces of the information that will help us make better project decisions to manage overall cost and schedule. And certainly, I believe, I've had some experiences, not just the one I talk about, but we need to understand how utilities and their relocations affect the environmental process. As I said, Dan's in the class, he specializes in the NEPA process. If you've evaluated an area and then I make a utility move that's outside of that footprint, I'm accountable. I've violated my NEPA process by doing that. So I need to be talking to Nikki Waterline here early and saying, if I can't design around you, where would you possibly relocate to? I need to know that for right away, and I need to know that for environmental purposes so that I can tell Dan, hey, I'm going to be moving outside this footprint. We've got to study this area too. Because the NEPA process demands that I know what I can know. And if all I have to do is ask her, then I need to give him that information so he can evaluate that area for environmental purposes, correct? So we can't just say, well, that was a utility issue, because it'll be a but for when it goes awry. Meaning, but for your project, that wouldn't have happened, so you're accountable. So we want to build a utility awareness throughout all phases of project development. That's one of the key elements of our research and our initiative. So we need to talk to leadership. Be brave enough to talk to your leadership about why utilities matter. The cost, the impact, the schedule, the frustration to the public when projects are delayed for a summer because we found a utility line that we didn't know about, or we're waiting on a schedule because we didn't plan for it well enough. So we need to talk about leadership and the costs involved. Certainly in planning and scoping, utilities should be involved, and you guys should be talking to people that are planning and scoping projects to make sure schedule and budget, right-of-way, environmental concerns concerning utilities are brought to light. Certainly in preliminary design, when we're making the initial decisions about how to lay out the project, we should be talking about what this means about utilities. I think Nikki shared with me the other day about a project alignment shifting to avoid a lot of utilities in millions. A lot of projects don't consider that, so we just blow up the utilities and we layer it into the current system and we pay for it. Those millions could have been spent on a better bridge, because we could have moved around that utility if we just do it in early involvement. So certainly in right-of-way, I've mentioned that a couple of times, right-of-way matters. You have to have a place. So the phrase that we use, everyone knows where everyone goes. So I've had that conversation with Nikki Water, and I've had that conversation with fiber and gas. If I can't design around you, where would you go? How much space do you need? So early in my project, I've already made a plan for how much right of way I need for the project to be successful. What I'm not saying is that I have to buy right of way for Nikki. I have to plan for the fact that she may need schedule to buy it herself. But I can't ignore the fact that if I make her move, she has to have a place to go, and that may need right of way. In most cases, I'm hard pressed to believe otherwise. It's better for the project just to get it bought. But if I don't want to buy it, I want you to buy your own, I better account for that in my schedule. If I don't, it's not a utility delay. It's a management delay on my part. Right? It's easy to blame the utilities. When I could have done something, didn't do it, act like it didn't matter, shove it off on her when it's really me all the time. Because I know they have to move. And if I didn't account for that schedule, that's on me. Okay. So final design, contract documents. This is one of the biggest problems that we see nationally is we write poor utility note. That's what you call it here, right? Utility note. So I can't tell you how many times I've written utility or seen utility special provisions or utility notes that are supposed to talk to the contractor but are written to the utility. So you need to do this. When I'm really telling the contractor what she's going to do. She doesn't even read the utility note. So we need to improve that process, that the contract notes reflect accurate information so that bids can be effective. And then we need to be involved in construction, and construction needs to step back into design. People that have been, how many people have been in construction? Did you learn some things from being in construction that you take back into design, right? We need that voice in design, that experience back in design, constructability reviews. Step back and say, well, I see how that's laid out, but how's that going to be built? So it looks like we're excavating right next to where she has a manhole. What's going to support that manhole while we're digging next to it? Well, I hadn't thought about that. Have anybody seen a manhole slide before? Because they excavated too close to it? It happens. So we need to get constructability review back in development. Again, integrating the design and utilities. And we also need to ask questions of the utility construction people. Because oftentimes the coordinator that we're dealing with is not who's going to build it. And they have the same experience gap that we have. So ask people that construct utilities about how it's going to be built as we're laying it out. And certainly in maintenance. Shouldn't build anything you can't maintain. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I understand your chart there and you can get utilities started as early as you can. The one thing that everybody leaves out is when the right of way is going to be purchased. You show it up there, but it's not going to get purchased. You know, I've said in a whole lot of meetings when I work for KYDC, we'll have it bought the day before it goes. We'll have it bought by the day it's left. That doesn't help a utility company any, because they're not going to design until they know all the right of ways bought. They're not going to have to redesign. You know, it's fine to hand them out a set of right of way plans, say here it is. But whenever y'all get it bought, we'll design, because we're not redesigning half a dozen times.
I totally get that. And that's why we need to integrate our departments. And
That part is probably never, the right of ways, we all know.
well, we're not going to give up the fight.
No.
We're going to speak to what's right
Yeah,
and hopefully encourage that to
Well, we
happen.
leave out the right of way purchase, and it's fine to have right of way there, but it's not gonna get purchased until right before it goes to levy, 90% of the time.
It is a common experience. So let's raise that as a red flag as utility coordinators and put that back on the project manager to say, you need to get this addressed, because I can't make Nikki Waterline move if I don't own the right of way to move her to.
I mean, you can go ask them, where will you go? Well, we're planning on going here.
Yep.
Well, that property owner says, no, you're gonna buy all my property, and now
Yeah.
the water line guys go, now what am I supposed to do? So.
I'm with you. It's part of our training project to talk about that. Maybe a little too granular for this session to get into it as much, but I'm right there with you. I came out of project management. So when I became the state director of utilities, my mindset was, how do I deliver the entire project, not how do I deliver one piece of it? And that's why I try to infuse a different thinking, to be solution focused. So the thing that I want to say is this utility coordination training is not just for utility coordinators, because we're not interested in building a better, shinier apple called utility coordination. We're interested in improving the reliability of KYTC delivery overall. So it's for everyone. All functional group managers, environmental group managers need to come up, get in training. Right-of-way managers need to get into training. Design managers, of course, but some key leaders, they need to understand the mindset and the concept. We're trying to improve project delivery, and we're going to do our part in the utility side. Project managers need to come, design managers, designers, like as I mentioned, construction. Utility coordination training is for everyone. All the KYTC staff that are involved in utilities for sure. Consultant PMs. People that are leading projects from the consultant side need to come to this training to understand the mindset and the expectations of all of the functional groups. Surveyors need to come. And certainly at some point, we need to get utilities involved in the same mindset. We want everybody to be coming to this training at one time or another. So here's some of the key training initiatives. Integrating utility coordination with project delivery. That's the big drum that we're going to be beating all the time. How do we eliminate silo thinking and get everybody thinking on the same page? How do we deliver the project? We'll cover roles and responsibilities. I think Jennifer taught that in the one-day training. As we go to the two-day training, we'll flesh out in detail who should be doing what, especially when we address that staffing issue and we bring on more consultants to do utility coordination. Everybody needs to know who's supposed to do what, and we need to establish consistency. We'll talk about utility coordination funding and state law. That's important. It's not the main point of this research project. It's not the main point of the training, but it's integrated because if you don't do the authorization and funding right, you can mess up the projects. And nobody wants that. We will talk about utility investigations, one call, and sue. So much misinformation about this piece of the puzzle. So much misunderstanding about what happens in reality. How many in the room know that one call doesn't mark anything? So many people think if I call one call, they'll go out and mark, and they don't mark anything. It's a pass-through process. How many of you know the likely fee that, let's say, AT&T pays to do a marking, a field marking? What do you think that contract would pay?
$12.
It's $8 to $12 is the typical contract. So let's say you're building a $5 million modest project and you need to know where the utilities are. If we rely on one call, we've invested, the industry invested $10 to $12 to get AT&T marked on that project. Okay, so one call is not our source here, guys. We're going to drive that home in the training. It's just not the right thing to do. I understand some of the conflicts that we have in all that discussion. I used to work for a utility locating company, and I have a little bit behind the scenes awareness of that whole piece of the puzzle. We're going to infuse, and this is where we're going to really make a lot of headway. The utility conflict management is a deliverable of the designer. I got 10 minutes. Oh my gosh. What's your name? Wendell. Wendell is going to be our designer. And so the point of the program is that you develop the conflict matrix because you're introducing conflicts. Nikki is a utility coordinator. She's going to coordinate and be aware of what you created. She'll help talk to the utilities, but you're the one that caused it. We want you to list the utility conflicts. And with each deliverable of your design process, in Indiana, we have stage 1, 2, and 3. You guys have something preliminary, final, something like that, right? When you submit your design plans, you submit your conflict matrix, and then Ben is the project manager for the cabinet. Ben's going to agree with you. So let's say at preliminary stage, you list the conflicts, but then he's going to identify that I need test holes for these. That's my first resolution. I need to know for sure. Okay, so that's what he's going to do. And that way, designers are immediately involved in conflict management. And then we're going to design to avoid whatever feasible. So if you can design around it, you have to document what you're going to do. You're going to approve that. Then she'll coordinate it. Some of the key milestones checklist. I'll pass this one. So utility conflict management that I just mentioned is collect the accurately existing utility information, depict the accurate information. Everyone on the team reviews these conflicts. So it's not just Nikki, the utility coordinator's job, or John's utility coordinator, it's the designer's primary job. Project managers accountable to help with that. And then you assist in facilitating the resolution. All right, so I want to talk about utility investigations, federal highway mandates that we do appropriate levels of utility investigations on every project. One call is not appropriate level. So utility investigations should fit the needs of the project. We'll talk about that in training. Surveying one call marks is not sue. Okay, it's not. Don't say it is. Don't say you did sue. All you did was pick up one call. So roles and responsibilities will help us establish consistency statewide, establish clear expectations. One of the things I understand now better than I ever did as a consultant, I need to know what you want me to do. And if I go to John's district and it's one expectation, I go to David's district and it's another expectations, it causes confusion on everybody's part. So let's get consistency and establish clear expectations and deliverables for utility coordination. So the pre-qualification, this is from the current manual. If I got it right, you can read that. You have to attend, participate, pass the class. If you don't, you can't do utility coordination on the KYTC project. 90 days to get it done, is that right? After training's available. We're going to try to get, COVID has messed up our schedule, but we're trying this fall to get our 2-day pilot done so we can roll this thing out and get active at it. I'm excited about it. I believe that we can save lots and lots of money, reduce frustration, speed up project delivery, and we can win this fight. Questions, comments? Yes.
We have a question online.
Yes.
Going back to the one call. If you ask AT&T where their lines are located, they will tell you to call one call.
Yep. I think we should seriously consider following states like Maryland, North Carolina, Georgia. When we do a project that has excavation, we should probably ask for quality level B SUE with the initial topo survey. We can shorten it some places, but I think it's the best thing to do is to get horizontal accuracy from the beginning of the project, because I'm going to hold you accountable to the list of conflicts. And I want you to design around them, but I'm not going to ask you to design around one call marks because they're not accurate enough. But if I give you quality level B, which is 90% certainty of the horizontal accuracy by qualified people that do the locates, then I should hold you accountable to design around what you can. Make this design decisions. I think we need to talk about that and be moving towards using soup providers as our source, not one call. Now, I also believe that we can do a lot to control the cost of soup. As I said, I work for a locate firm and I have a little idea what it really costs to get out in the field. Well, I've written a guidance document that the panel can look at and weigh in on. I think we can improve the cost of soup and get ahead of some of that. Other questions? Did I answer everything already? Comments? I appreciate your honest feedback about the right-of-way. I totally agree. We've got to solve that problem as well.
We agree with everything you say that, our HSIP program, we're working on a 9-mile corridor. We're giving $100,000 design. I haven't charged that project. Get the survey done and utility coordination. And even the designer at one point had jumped off.
Yeah.
It kind of starts even before design starts.
Back in planning, got to scope it right. We got to get an idea of true cost and schedule, or we're just going to be a mess. I totally agree. Totally. As a project manager for MnDOT for 7 years during major moves, I totally get funding concerns. And that even drives home the point. It's a whole lot more cost effective to design around a utility than have them move.
In this situation, we try to do that best we can.
Yeah.
But it's also a bigger process to do it. Get utilities underground located.
Absolutely.
So we know what it is.
And so one of the things that I recommend we always do is document those things and get them up the ladder. So leadership knows you underfunded this project, and you put everybody in a box. Let's not do this one again. Because if we don't share that information, we'll just repeat it. It doesn't do us chickens any good to complain in the coop. We got to get outside the coop and talk. Yeah, I totally get that. So tracking our efforts and our costs will help us push that up the ladder. Okay, guys.
Keep an eye out for that training, right? Right, Kenny?
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Kenny. We hope to have that training available. 2022 is what we're looking at, I believe.
Good point.
Project development for 20 years. So sometimes, you know,